the stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction and also the invitation, because I really love JavaFX and I really enjoyed the last year's JFX Days. And of course, this year we have to do it virtual, but for me, it's an advantage because I don't have to carry that much hardware with me. Okay, so before we get started, make sure you have your coffee, as I have mine here.
Nice coffee mug.
Yeah, let me show it.
Wonder where you got it.
Yeah, actually in Zurich, there is a weird person who gives them away for free.
So that's the advantage of on-site conferences, right? You get stuff like that.
Yeah. You could have sent it to me, though. Okay, the agenda today is I want to introduce you to liquid handling robots just a little bit because I switched jobs. So I actually was unable to update my bio. So this is my fault, not your fault. I'm not working at the university anymore, but I moved to a company. I will tell you about that in a minute. We will talk about the JavaFX user interface that we developed for our newest machine. And I have great news that we will use JavaFX extensively for future products. And yeah, I just want to walk you through custom controls, the styling, and the zoomable UIs that we created. And we might get a little technical about creating the model layers of the machine with VMF, which is a modeling framework that I started when I still worked at university and that we still use and improve as we are working on those products. And I created some nice do-it-yourself projects, a so-called ZEN-table. I'll explain that in a moment, but yeah, this is just a teaser, so you can really create nice Zen patterns in sand. And if we have time for Q&A, then we'll do that as well. A little bit about me. So I'm now the head of software development at BioFluidiX. It's a really exciting company. It does a lot of custom hardware development, liquid handling robots, and lab automation workflows. I hold a PhD in computer science. I'm a Java 1 rockstar. I'm the main developer of VRL Studio, and you can find me on GitHub and Twitter if you want. VRL Studio was one of my main projects at the university. So this was, I started the project as part of my diploma thesis and then continued working on it during my PhD time at the university. It's a reflection-based visual programming environment, all based on the Java platform. And while VRL Studio was Swing-based in the beginning, or still is, I also created some JavaFX counterparts to the libraries. So here you see a source code editor that has a textual representation on the left-hand side and a real-time version of the same code on the right-hand side with JavaFX. And actually, this example, minus the 3D part, ran in JPro. That's how I got convinced that this is something that's really cool in certain scenarios, so that you can just deploy your application to the browser. And there's also vWorkflows, which is an interactive flow and graph visualization library. And no, this screenshot is not JavaFX, it's Blender. So I'm just showing off a little bit here because sometimes I got asked how I got the blurring effect done. About the company is called BioFluidiX. We're based in Freiburg, but I mostly work from Frankfurt. Yeah, as you can see, we have a lot of applications, even related to the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So we build machines and workflow that can help with the detection and treatment of it. At least we hope so. And we try to contribute as much as possible in that respect. The liquid handling robots the company creates and customizes are like a workstation that is a mix between a CNC machine and a 3D printer. And we have so-called pipe jets, and we dispense very small volumes. So basically just small drops of some fluid. And this is then a picoliter up to a microliter. And we dispense it precisely on a predefined location. On the right-hand side, you can see very small drops. And we also provide consulting and some R&D services. Okay, this is the machine that we currently ship. Here is the media, and here it is dispensed out of those pipe jets. And as you can see, there is a user interface that is touch-based. And as you might have guessed, like in previously, it was not JavaFX based, but the good news is that the new machines are JavaFX based. I won't go into detail what this specific machine does because the user interface is for a different one. But the takeaway point is that it is close to the hardware, and we need to control sensors and actuators. And the user interface should be touch-based and easy to use. So the touch user interface for the so-called spray coater that we designed looks like this. So this is the machine. It is located at the University of Freiburg. We have 3 axes, so we can move a head, like this is the head, and we can move that in X direction and Y direction. And there's also a Z axis as well. Let me get that out of the way. Here, you would put a syringe with whatever you want to spray on top of the substrate. And here you see on the left-hand side, the user interface that we created. And before we continue with the talk, I would like to talk a little bit about the ZEN-table, just tease it a little bit, because drawing patterns on it actually takes some time. So this is just a fun project that I worked on. I've seen that some people have tried that in the past. There even were some Kickstarters, and I thought this is a nice way of exploring JavaFX and interactivity for such a do-it-yourself project. And it's really nicely looking in your living room, and you can just draw different patterns. Let's get to the table and start it. So just a second. Okay, here you can see the table. Now I will just switch to a different program because I have the JavaFX program also running on a different machine. So we just start the pattern. And now you can see that the ball is moving. And it starts creating a different pattern. And I will talk about the details later. I mean, I can't give a full talk on how to build your own. But if you're interested, write it to the chat. So let's make a deal. If more than 10 people are interested in the do-it-yourself project and how to build it, I might create a video about it if more than 10 people are interested. Okay, so let's just keep running this in the background. If you hear too many noises, then I would stop it, but otherwise I would just let it run for a while, and then we'll see. Okay, cool. So in the past, I have told you, like last year, for example, that JavaFX is one of the nicest APIs in the UI toolkit zoo, and much cleaner API than AWT in Swing. Even though I still use Swing, I think JavaFX has really made a point API-wise, but I told you that it was less capable in some areas, like interacting with native rendering, but this became less relevant because we have options for that. You will hear about DriftFX, I think, today or tomorrow. And I told you about NativeFX last year. And so today, I call this, I just cancel that. It's a non-issue for me anymore. But this has different reasons because I work in different areas. And I would like to introduce you to the JavaFX user interface that we created for the spray coater machine. Here you see the basic user interface. You can see this is a visualization of the printhead, and this is your finger. So let me just draw a finger. So this is your finger, and you are moving the head to a predefined location. You can snap to one of those other locations, like you could snap it here or in the center or somewhere else. And you see a table. So this here is the table or stage. This here is the substrate. And we have a purge location. And all of that is just real basic JavaFX. So I started with a prototype in a vector drawing application. And I just told JavaFX, hey, this is a circle. And I supplied it with some CSS. We can also look at the source code if you want. And the overall look and feel, as we would have called it in good old swing days, is actually not that far from the default, I think Caspian or Modena it's called. It just uses different accent colors, etc. And this was really nice for us because we didn't have that much time, but we wanted a dark mode kind of look. And that was really simple to accomplish, actually. So what you see here is a really nice number keypad. And because everything should be touch-based, yeah? So there's no mouse or keyboard interaction here. I mean, of course, you can use a mouse and keyboard, but you don't have to. And there is some tabs in the user interface, and you can see there are some other controls. Actually, I expected Garrett's link to appear here. It didn't. So let me just go out of the slide here. Yes, here it actually is. I will show you later. Okay, I just didn't remember that. I wanted to show you around. Okay, so here we have an extruder. So this would be for a syringe. And you can specify extrusion rate, etc. So really just basic JavaFX controls. And even though in the past I haven't used a scene builder very much, I actually did here because it was so easy to prototype and set up the project. Yeah, we have some profiles that you can load, really just basic stuff. So now let's talk about the custom controls that we created and the styling and the zoomable UIs and, of course, the third-party libraries that we used. First of all, JavaFX and tooling I think, has improved a lot because there is a Gradle plugin, a Maven plugin, and it makes things much easier. And also JPackage makes our life much easier because we can just deploy native packages. And of course, community matters. We couldn't live without third-party libraries. And because I heard in the past that JavaFX was rather difficult to set up, I just want to reply with this slide. So here, just this one is the important one. Everything works if you just add that to your Java project. You have all the dependencies you need. Everything will be downloaded just like a regular library. So if you hesitated to use JavaFX, I just want to reply with this slide, add this to your Gradle file, and you can get started with the hello world. And here is also a probably too small link to this file on GitHub, but you can basically check for OpenJFX samples and find it there. So for us, it was really nice that we could set up everything and we didn't have to install different SDKs on different machines. I could just switch computers. And yeah, so that was really great for us. And a big shout out to Gluon, of course, for providing the plugin and all the investment into the JavaFX ecosystem. Now, yeah, here comes Garrett's Han Solo's GitHub profile image. He contributed this number keypad and also those touch sliders. The sliders are nice because they are based on canvas, so they don't increase the number of nodes on the scene graph. And of course, this keypad is done with regular JavaFX and nodes, but since you only see it for a short period of time, it doesn't add much to the scene graph. One important library that I wrote a while ago is ScaledFX, because sometimes it's rather hard to estimate the exact boundary of your user interface. And if you don't want to change the layout, or you don't want to provide like a reactive application that changes, because for the process, it's important that the buttons are located at specific positions. Then scaling the interface is a really nice option. Let me show that to you in the actual application. Here you can see it. So the application is smaller, but the buttons are also smaller. If I go full screen, you see the buttons increase in size, but they still keep their layout. And the only thing the application might do is it might add some weird borders if you have really untypical screen sizes, but it will always work, even if you make it extremely small. So if you have a custom display built into a machine, we can adjust the application a little bit, but for basically all the tabs here and boxes, we can keep everything as it is and just give users a familiar layout. Okay, so here's some sample code for the ScaledFX library. You basically just create a scalable content pane and you add whatever you want to it. In this case, it's just the button from the animation you saw earlier, and that's it. And of course, you can find it on GitHub and consume it via Bintray, Maven Central, etc. So styling, okay, that was a note to self. I wanted to show you that in the IDE. So here you see just the very basic CSS styling that we have done. So first of all, can you see is the font size okay, or should I increase it?
Looks okay to me.
Fine for me.
Okay, good. So here we just import a couple of fonts, because for us it's important that the application looks similar on all platforms, and that's why also the number keypad was important, because we didn't want to rely on like the Windows keyboard or something like that. And if we ever need letters, I know Dirk has created a keyboard that looks nice. So here our root style, we just changed the accent color and the base color. So this is a rather dark one, and then we derive certain background colors, and we have the alternate. So if you have a list view or something, you could have this alternating backgrounds if you wanted. And we set a default font family. And yeah, for the number pad, we use a monospaced font. And here are the things that I translated from the vector drawing program. So when you go to Inkscape or Affinity Designer or whatever, and you draw something like those rectangles. Actually, let me load a different profile, like this one. These are the colors that you see. So it's really easy to set up. You just specify your border color, the width, and then if you have some dash lines like we have here, you specify them, and border radius if you want that. And in this case, you don't have to forget the background radius. And here is the same for the stage. So this is this inner gray rectangle. Also has just a border color, background color, really basic stuff. And the substrate, which is this rectangle here. And it also has just the basic definitions of border and background. And the substrate margin around it, this is like this darker gray rectangle. So let me increase that a little bit for the x-axis. This is the margin. Also pretty simple. Then for the spray head, we have some different circles actually. So the spray head foreground here is green in this case, so a green stroke. And for idling, we just use a rather inactive looking gray, etc. For moving, we have yellow, and for the line too. So when actually the head moves while you're dragging it, we have this transparent yellow. And then we have animation colors for when you reach the target, and we have some styling for the head itself. I will try to show you a draw robot and show you the touch control on it. So let me see if that works. I just have to set up a different camera. Hope that works. I think I can go to preset 1. Sorry for that. Okay. If it doesn't work, I will stop it in like 30 seconds or something like that. Device doesn't show up. Okay. Okay. It doesn't seem to work, so I will just move the other camera to it. So here, just for some entertainment, you see the ball creating those patterns. So here you see the draw bot. If you look closely, you see that there is some rabbit over there. So, and now if I control the application, I will try to show you both at once. So I could just drag this here and the machine will move. I hope you can see it. And I know the quality isn't ideal, but I hope you can still see that. And this is just done with JavaFX properties. So we create device objects that encapsulate all the hardware access and provide JavaFX properties for them. and they are then just translated. So the events are directly sent to the hardware from JavaFX. Okay. So, and if I would start the process, let's change the pitch, something like 10. I could start a process. And that's what the machine would do. So this is my substitute for the real machine because I'm obviously at home and not at work, but I can substitute the actual machine. And as you can see, the app also updates everything. And for me and for the whole team, it was really nice to use the scene graph. As much as I've criticized the scene graph in the past, as much I have to really give a shout out to it, because for what we wanted to do, it was really, really great, because this is just basic geometry. I don't know if you heard about G-code, but this is like sending the coordinates to the machine. And this G-code visualization in JavaFX is so easy to accomplish. So I don't know if you have questions already, because I'm switching between machines and topics. So you just
there were some questions. So should I just ask them while you are switching?
Yeah, sure.
So one question was about the hardware. So on what hardware is this application running?
So the application, sorry, let me get closer to the microphone. So for the first machine, it is actually running on just a Core i5 machine that is built into the spray coder that I've shown earlier. So let me go back to the slides. When you look at the machine, right there, inside the machine is just a PC with, I think, 8 GB of RAM and a standard Core i5 machine. But it was also very attractive for us to use a framework, and I'm really glad I also could pitch that to the company, that we can use JavaFX, because just recently Gluon announced that they have a different render path to
Sorry, that was on my side.
yeah, okay, I wasn't sure whether work was calling or something. Okay. No, but they have a render path for Raspberry Pi and embedded, and they are investing in embedded a lot. So for us, also the option to run on embedded on mobile. I mean, maybe a company comes and says, we want to buy your machine, but only if you provide a mobile application or something.
Yeah.
And then we have the option, even though we don't have like hundreds of developers working on that, we have to come up with a solution where resources are used well, and I think we can do that here. And also, as we have seen with the community contributions, in the community we know each other and we can contribute stuff. And I also publish my modified versions of that on GitHub again, and all under Apache or other friendly licenses. So I think this works pretty well.
Another
yeah. So
was about the JDK. So
okay.
what kind of Java? So what version of Java are you using? And yeah.
Okay. So here we used JDK, OpenJDK 14. Yeah. But actually, we didn't have many problems with different JDKs. So I run it regularly on different JDKs, and that works fairly well. So there's no problem between switching, let's say, between 13 and 15. We don't see much difference. Obviously, performance is a little bit different, and the newer versions of JavaFX are better, of course. But yeah, we are pretty flexible in that regard. And currently, it's 14, and we also update the machines regularly to different JDKs. Okay. So we've seen the ZEN-table. We've seen the user interface. Are there specific questions to the user interface, or is everything clear so far? Okay. So I'm not watching the chat. You just tell me whether.
Yeah, I will do. So now there's a new question. So in general,
Okay.
I just said that it's a very good looking UI, and people said that they like the UI. Do you
Thank you
run
very much.
any logger? So there's a question that just came up. Do you run in parallel any logger from Alexander? I don't actually understand that one.
So a logging framework. You mean a logging framework?
Maybe I don't know. So maybe yes, yeah, a logging framework.
Yeah. So actually, we use TinyLog, which works pretty well. So we are logging a lot of things, and also like the different sensors and when we trigger the motors, etc. And so we can basically replicate everything that the machine does. And if an event occurs, then we of course log it, and we use TinyLog, and then we have a specific log folder for the application, and it runs in its own thread, and we really like that.
Okay, so we have two additional questions here. So one question is about the touch keyboard that you showed.
Yeah.
You've mentioned, I mean, Gerrit. You said Gerrit created that, right?
Yes.
So the question is for the GitHub URL. Is it on GitHub or?
It's on GitHub.
Yeah.
I can just look it up.
I think Gerrit is in the audience too. So maybe maybe Gerrit or someone else already did it. Yep.
Okay.
Perfect. So we already have it. That's fine. And the other question is if you ever tried to run this on JPro.
Not this specifically. Actually, I was running an early prototype of it with JPro, and that worked because I pitched the possibility of running it in the browser. I don't know whether the current application will run with JPro, but since we are mostly using the scene graph and not the top level dialog APIs, because personally I don't really like that because it's OS specific, and then you see that it's a Windows-based OS, etc. So it throws you out of the flow. Most of the things should work, but I haven't tried the current application. But yes, in general, I think it would work.
Okay. But maybe that's a good point why we're waiting, right? So when talking about JPro, I know that you tried it with a lot of nodes, or not?
Yeah, so I tried it with, let's go back to this.
That one, because we did it at Java 1, right?
It was a Java 1, and I told Florian, so I can't take you serious. But then he said, yeah, let's try your application, and he did, and he ran the application, and he just said, I have to add the Gradle plugin, and that's all he did, and it basically worked. It's now many years ago, and that really showed me that the thing works, and I think it's really impressive what they did.
Do you have an idea of the node count that we've seen there when we tried that?
No, I don't really know that, but I think it was at least like 50 windows or something like that, 30 to 50 windows, and then each window has its own nodes, so it was a couple of nodes there.
Okay.
I think a typical application won't have any problems.
Okay, cool.
So I will just switch to VMF. Let me see how it's doing. Okay, it's doing really well. It's almost done. Something that I've been working on at university is a model layer and also language infrastructure. I will only show the modeling aspect of it because some people often ask me at university, how do you manage state and how do you do undo, redo, etc. if you have a complex model that's not only living in JavaFX but also in the backend. And for that, I use the framework called VMF, and that allows you to specify interfaces. So for example, here we have a parent interface. It has a name property, and we just specify children, and we specify the containment between them. Maybe you know that from the Eclipse infrastructure. They have something similar. And here we see the child just has a value, but it knows its parent. And you know that from JavaFX, when you add something to the scene graph, you have to call get children at, right? So if that was JavaFX, you would say get children at, and then you would add the child. Okay, so for example, C1. But in this framework, you can also do the opposite. You can use your child and just say set parent P1, for example, and then it will automatically be added to that list. And there are a lot more features. So here is just an excerpt from what will be generated if you specify those interfaces. Here you see the properties, containment, so it knows the parent will automatically be set like in JavaFX, but it also works the other way around. And you have, of course, change notifications, and you have property objects like in JavaFX, and it also creates iterators. So if you have a really complex model, then usually an iterator over your object hierarchy isn't that easy. And here we can just use normal Java streams, and I can show you that in the machine. Because I implemented snapping and all those things with that framework. So the snapping stuff is not done in JavaFX. Let me show you the view model. This is basically just a Java file. So, okay. We go to the beginning of the file. Okay, yeah, here we have a spray coder model, and then you declare your dependencies, and you see you can also annotate it for serialization and deserialization. So when you want to serialize that to property files, etc. And for this hierarchy, you just you can use Java streams, and that's really great if you just want to say everything that has to do with the COM port, I want to iterate over and add it to a list view, for example. That is the type of things you can do. So the basic idea is that you generate different patterns. You might have seen there are frameworks who are very good at creating builders. Others are very good at creating toString and hash code, etc. And this is combining many different patterns, actually. You get builders and factories, observers, and all that kind of known patterns. And then we have a binding layer that you can use to bind this to JavaFX. The problem for us was like the JavaFX properties, they need the JavaFX runtime. So this is not like just a listener thing. And Hendrik, actually you were involved in it in a way, because for the collections, I used the collection API that we created. Like, I don't know if you remember when I created the listenable collection library, you asked me whether I would like to implement your proposal. And this is part of the framework. Yeah, so here you can just convert between properties and set values for validation, maximum, minimum values, and you can specify error handlers. So something like this here is a very bad error handler, but down below you see the error handler in the other direction is just saying, hey, set the previous value. And then you can add some animation to the text field to indicate that the value was invalid. Yeah, that's what we use the framework for. And I don't know, should we go to the ZEN-table? How much time do we have left?
You still have 10 minutes.
Okay, so that's great. Then let's just talk a little bit about the ZEN-table.
Well, not quite, actually. We have 6 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Let's not talk about time because we're just losing. but thanks. Yeah, so this is just a hobby project because, you know, against the Corona blues that you might feel, I just ordered a couple of parts and I got a couple of parts from the company, and I built a table with an X system in it, and I used a Arduino Uno for the motor controller. And here you see the table, and this is just from the tool store, just some plywood, etc., basic stuff. And then I created this table out of that, and it's an iron ball and a magnet inside on the X system, and yeah, it's for creating those patterns. And actually, I'm working on a real open source version of the application so that we can use that for like showing off how to communicate with temperature sensors, etc., and also with motors and robotics. Yeah. Here is some examples. So this is also a strength of JavaFX. You could use the web view and use a service like Sandify. This is from somebody who says, yeah, I'm one of the 20 people who built his own magnetic ZEN-table. I'm now person 21 or something. No, and you could just add that project to JavaFX because it's based on basic HTML5 with JavaScript. So many thanks to that project. It's all open source. And then you can generate all kinds of different interesting patterns. Okay, so I'm done from my side. So thank you very much. I really enjoyed the conference, and I will looking forward to the other great talks today and tomorrow. I will try to join as much as I can. Yeah. Do we have time for questions?
Yeah, I think we have a few more minutes, especially since I'm the next speaker, so I'm very flexible there. So we have another 4 minutes. Does anyone still have a question? Please add them to the chat. Just waiting. So you get a lot of things. If no more questions are coming, then we just wait for another 4 minutes, and then I will start with my presentation on. Ah, there we go. Can JavaFX handle gestures?
Yes. So I mean, you could like pinch to zoom or something. That are things that you could use, and that's actually one thing I started on an icon library for mouse and keyboard, and then we decided to go touch only. So that was kind of bad. So I can't show you the manual right now with all the gestures because I have to redo all that. But yes, you can. I mean, you have the finger ID, so you know when something touched the control, and you can use different fingers, and then there are some predefined gestures, and you can also do your own. Yes, I use Scene Builder actually for the first time, really. And I was surprised how well it worked for us. In the past, I have rather invested my time in like flexible user interfaces that would expand at runtime, etc. So Scene Builder wasn't a real help there. But for this application, it definitely was. We have fxml files that we just plug together, and that works great. Okay, so VMF compiled to native code. I don't understand that. I mean, what do you mean by native code in JavaFX? It compiles to Java code. So there's one difference between VMF and other modeling frameworks. It doesn't use compiler plugins or anything. It just creates Java source code that is handled by Gradle or Maven. It would be compiled like any other Java code. So if you use VMF and you add it to your Java project and you compile the source code with GraalVM to a native image, then this is also part of this native image. So it's just regular Java code from that perspective. Yeah. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. And once again, great that you were able to give a presentation. I remember your presentation last year. That was also very, very visual and very, very cool, where you were talking about native FX. And yeah, let's see what you can come up with next year.